Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Thomson Reuters Eikon App Studio webinar. My name is Toby Amis, and I'm the Business Director in our Partnerships team, and we'll spend a few minutes just highlighting some of the key points about Eikon and the App Studio before we're handing it over to Alex Putkoff, who will be taking you through some code samples and the proposition in much more detail. So very quickly, what is Eikon? Well, Eikon is Thomson Reuters' premium flagship one-stop shop platform for financial services professionals. We service professionals across the board in all asset classes. It's both a market data and a transactions platform, and some of the key features that delight our users are a very rich visual user experience, a very easy to use and intuitive user experience, and of course one of the things we'll focus on today is that the platform is an open platform which enables users to interact with Thomson Reuters data in whole new ways. One of the things that we have done in the last 12 months is to open up our platform and offer our customers and partners and third-party developers a set of development tools to enable them to develop, distribute and manage applications in Eikon. Now, what does this mean? Well, open platforms aren't new to Thomson Reuters. We have had probably one of the original financial services open platforms in our TREP, our Thomson Reuters Enterprise platform. But this takes things one step further to the extent that we no longer just provide data via APIs and feeds to our customers and partners, as we have done for many years. We now enable our customers and partners to take that data and to use development tools to build applications which can then be distributed either internally or across to the whole of the Eikon community, and also managed in terms of who can see those applications and the management around those applications and usage data and so on and so forth. This is really, really important for us, and it's great news for our partners, and of course it's great news for our users too. It means that we are able to work with strategic partners to augment the propositions that we have today and to make them stronger. It means that our partners are able to have their apps listed in our App Studio, which is effectively the shop front and the means of discoverability and navigation towards all of our Eikon apps. It means that tailoring the desktop environment has never been easier. And of course, because of the technology that we provide our partners, the apps that are built are first-in-class apps and work very, very intuitively and sit very nicely alongside all of our other Thomson Reuters apps. Of course, our partners get the benefit of the 130,000 plus distribution of Eikon users, and of course our users get the benefit of all of the great niche functionality that our partners bring to the table. So in terms of the three main pillars of the App Studio, we have development, and for that we have an Eikon software development kit, and of course Alex will go into much more detail on that, but that essentially encompasses some data APIs, UI framework, some context parsing APIs to make the apps work in conjunction with our other TR Eikon apps seamlessly, search APIs and other things effectively, which Alex will touch on later. A distribution mechanism, because Eikon has an Eikon app library, and within that app library is the App Store, and that's where users can browse, trial and buy the apps that our partners put into the library. And of course, in terms of management, then the partners or our partners get access to an Eikon admin app, which enables them to administer trials and so on and so forth. Very, very quickly on the use cases, we have customers who build Eikon App Studio apps just for their internal users. We have customers who build Eikon App Studio apps to get their particular data or value add out to their own customers. And we also have customers and partners and third-party vendors who build apps into the app library and actually sell those apps for which there is a revenue share. So without further ado, let me jump into a demonstration, a very, very quick demonstration of Eikon, so you can get a little bit of context around what I've just been talking about. Okay, so now we are sitting in front of an Eikon terminal, and you can see I have various tabs at the top. One of them is called FX Monitor. I have Stock Analysis, World Elections, and a selection of new apps as well. So very, very briefly, if I just start with a new workspace, you can see under my Helios here I have a selection of Thomson Reuters built apps. But if I come down to my app library, I also have a selection of apps which our customers and partners have published into the app library. So everything you see here is built by our customers, and everything you see in the clusters above is built by Thomson Reuters. But of course, they interact in completely intuitive ways. So let's just give you an example. Let me open up this app, and let me open up a Thomson Reuters app, a monitor, and I'm going to populate that with some data. So now I have a monitor showing the FTSE 100. Close down my App Studio. Now I can bump them together and they move as one. I can drop one on top of the other and they get a stack. I can drag it out again and I can bump it. So they work, this third-party app works in exactly the same way, using the same UI frameworks as our Thomson Reuters native apps. I can also link these apps together. So I give it the red channel and paint over the other app. Now everything that I click on here will link through into my other app in exactly the same way as it would if I was using a native Thomson Reuters app, such as a chart. Let's make that one red. Now you can see that both my chart, let's just drop that one on top there. See my Aztec Analytics and my chart. If I switch the company to BT, they will update to BT. So that's a very, very brief introduction. Let's show you that in action a little bit more. Here's a foreign exchange workspace with various TR apps at the top. But down here we've got Chart IQ, one of our partners, and as I click on, say, the Swedish krona, you'll see the Chart IQ updates and our supports and resistance updates. Okay. On this particular workspace, I have a Thomson Reuters monitor, and if I click on a beaver, you can see my news is updated, my charts updated, my blended order book has updated, my short interest analytic has updated, and my OTAS, another third-party provider of analytics to us, have updated as well. And again, I can drive that context passing from a vendor's app as well. So if I click on Aviva here, it updates into the other panels as well. And if I come onto my top stocks, okay, so that's a very, very, very brief glimpse at Eikon. I'm now going to pass over to Alex Putkov, who is going to walk us through in much more detail with code samples. Spend the next 50 minutes or so showing you how to build a Thomson Reuters Eikon App Studio app. Thanks very much.
Hello, my name is Alex Putkov. I'm a developer advocate at Thomson Reuters. Today I'm going to show you how using Thomson Reuters Eikon App Studio program you can build rich web applications which blend market data with your in-house data. The example I'm going to show facilitates the use case where a sales or a trader needs to provide quotes to clients or other counterparties. These quotes typically are determined by current market valuations of an asset and by a range of other factors such as the counterparty, market volatility, usage of credit limits, and so on and so forth. In the simplest use case we're going to look at today, FX spot quote is calculated by adding a spread to current FX spot rates supplied by market data vendor. The value of the spread is determined by the counterparty and the instrument. These days, we would like to facilitate most of the end-user workflow through web apps because web apps are easy to maintain and deploy. However, when a web app requires market data licensing and entitlements enforcement becomes a challenge. which is why the user's workflow frequently ends up being facilitated by Excel spreadsheets, which are difficult to maintain and support. It's hard to keep track of numerous copies and versions of these spreadsheets. Data ends up being hard-coded in the spreadsheets instead of being centrally maintained. It's also hard to share the data through the spreadsheets, as well as to share the master spreadsheet among users. Eikon App Studio program provides a simple solution. With Eikon App Studio, your apps run on your web servers, thus eliminating any possible security concerns related to the vendor hosting your apps. Since the apps are hosted on your web servers, they can access any in-house data sources and repositories. Finally, no additional market data licenses are required. If a user is permissioned to view market data in Eikon, he or she will be able to view it in your app, and vice versa. If the user is not entitled to specific market data, he or she won't be able to view it in the app. Market data entitlements are enforced by Eikon, and as a developer, you don't need so much as to think about it. Now let's talk about the example I'm going to demonstrate. The app is written in HTML and JavaScript. The server side is Node.js. The client side is Chromium browser embedded in Eikon. User interface and dependency injection provided by AngularJS. We also use jQuery, and to build the app we used Grunt. All of these choices, except for the Chromium browser embedded in Eikon, are completely arbitrary. You can use pretty much any web technology you are comfortable with. So let's see the app in action now, shall we? This is Eikon toolbar, and I'm running Node on my local computer here. So I'm going to launch the app from the local host. The app displays bid and ask quote for a spot exchange rate for a currency pair of my choice, and it displays it the way FX sales or trader likes to see it. Pips are displayed very prominently, as this is the part of the quote they follow, whereas big figure part of the quote is displayed in smaller font. The app also shows the transaction amount in the quoted currency given the volume in the base currency we enter in the volume field. And finally, the app displays the effect of the spread over bid and ask market rates on the expected profit from the transaction. The background color of the quote indicates directional movement of the exchange rate. The quote is calculated by adding fixed spread to bid and ask rates retrieved from Thomson Reuters. This is the window where I set up and maintain my list of counterparties and where I can specify the spread I want to add given the counterparty and the currency pair. Here I have Acme Corporation, and for this counterparty I add 10 pips to bid and ask quotes for euro and 30 pips for sterling. When I trade with Scrooge McDuck, I want to add 20 pips to dollar versus euro rate, and let's add the spread for sterling. I'm typing Scrooge McDuck in the counterparty field, and now I'm entering the RIC, GBP equals. I specify that I want 20 pips on both bid and ask quote. Now I fill out all the other field, phone number, and the email address. Now I save the entry, and let's close out of this window. If I have Acme Corporation on the phone asking for a quote on sterling, I can type in the counterparty field Acme and select from the drop-down Acme and sterling, and now my spread is widened to 30 pips on both bid and ask. And if I'm given a quote to Scrooge, I select Scrooge from the list, and my spread is narrowed to 20 pips on both sides. To create a better pre-trade workflow for the user, I can add a quote list with my currency pairs, which is a native app that comes with Eikon. And I can link it to my Quote Assist app on a color-coded channel. And now, when I select a currency pair in the quote list, it is automatically reflected in the Quote Assist app. Now, to complete the workflow, I'm also going to add a chart. Which is another native Eikon app. Just like quote list. And I'm going to link it on the same color-coded channel. So now, when I select a currency pair in the quote list, it is reflected both in the Quote Assist app and in the chart app. I can also have multiple instances of the Quote Assist app. I'm going to create another instance and put it at the bottom. And now I'm also going to add another quote list. And link it to my Quote Assist app. Let's also add the chart. And let's link all three apps at the bottom on a different color channel. So now, when I'm going to select a currency pair in the bottom quote list, it is reflected in the Quote Assist and in the chart app at the bottom. And if I select a currency pair in the top quote list, it is reflected in Quote Assist and in chart apps at the top. This is how a user would construct a trading screen, which can be saved and used in daily workflow. And now let's take a look at the code implementing this app. Index.html is the app view. It's all standard AngularJS stuff. Here's the ng-app directive. Here are the references to style sheets and to JavaScript dependencies. One of the dependencies is the Thomson Reuters JavaScript library called JET, which stands for JavaScript Icon Toolkit. This library provides two things. It allows you to retrieve data from Eikon, and as I mentioned earlier, since the data is retrieved from Eikon, you as a developer don't need to worry about data entitlements. Eikon takes care of that. And it provides integration between your app and Eikon, such as context sharing, the capability to interact with other apps, etc. The important thing we do here is we handle DOM onload event. So we assign it to the function onload handler, and this is our function. And what we do in this function is we initialize jet library, which is an asynchronous separation, and handle jet onload event, which notifies us when jet finished initializing and is ready. Next, we have the app controller, where I'm on other things, we implement a handler for get onContext change event. The context can come from one of two places. It can come from another app via link channel, as we just saw in the app demo. In this case, we expect the context to be in the form of RIC, which stands for Reuters Instrument Code, and which is the main type of symbology used by Thomson Reuters market data products. The context can also come from the command line or the search bar in the app. Here, in a generic use case, we don't know what type of identifier user may enter. Apart from RIC, it can be icing, QSIP, Siedel, German Wertpapier-Kennnummer, and so on. So we expect the symbol entered by the user to be described as unknown. Since the app is single instrument focused, we apply the RIC to the root scope. Next, we have the calculator component, which consists of 3 views and the controller. In the controller, we implement a JSON object we name quote, and which facilitates the display of the quote as well as market data subscription. Using the subscribe function, we pass the quote object to the quotes service implemented in the quotes module. Here, using Thomson Reuters Jet library, we create a subscription with the RIC we received from the quote object. And the quote object comes from the calculator controller. And we assign onUpdate handler to onUpdate method implemented in the calculator controller. The onUpdate event is raised every time market data update is received on the subscription. This is where we extract the data from the update and also determine the background color of the quote depending on the directional movement of the exchange rates. We also implement methods that allow us to match user input in the counterparty input box with the list of counterparties maintained using client service, which I'm not going into in the interest of time. And finally, we implement a number of custom directives allowing us to format the quote in the way FX users like it, i.e. split into big figure in the pips. And this is where I slice the quote into big figure and the pips. So this is it. This is how the app is implemented. Pretty simple, yeah? And now let's make a small addition to the app. Let's add a button that will launch a new chart app from Eikon and pass the RIC symbol from our app to the newly created chart app. Let's add a method to the scope, which we will call openChart, and create a function, an anonymous function that we'll use jet.navigate method. And in the parameters, we specify that we want to navigate to a graph. And we want to pass as a rig to that graph the rig we get from the quote object we saw earlier. So now let's save this module and let's add the button to HTML. Let's align that button to the right and assign openChart method from the controller to ngClick directive. Let's also add tooltips. So in the tooltip text I want to say show chart. And I need to add the tooltip trigger. To mouse enter event. And let's align the tooltip placement to the left. And finally, let's add an icon to that button, and we're going to use icon line chart class from the style sheets provided with Icon Web SDK. Now let's close the button tag. This is it. Let's save this HTML file. And now let's create an instance of the app using previous build. Here it is. Now let's stop the web server and let's create a new build with the modifications I just made. Here you go. The build is in progress. Now the build finished. Let's start Node. And create a new instance of the app where you can now see the button I just added with the tooltip show chart, and when I click on it, it creates a new chart and passes the rig to it. You can find a variation of this app on GitHub. It's called App Studio JavaScript Trade Assist. And now let's take a look at App Studio SDK. Here's the app that demonstrates the features of Jet Library and provides code samples. Some of these features we've already seen in the Quote Assist app demo that I just did, such as the initialization of Jet Library and the handling of Jet onload event. Icon has a concept of active symbol. This is the main symbol in focus of a workspace, and it is reflected in the icon toolbar. Jet library provides a method to get active symbol, which is useful when a user creates a new instance of your app, rather than instantiating the app blank or instantiating it with some hard-coded symbol. You can get the active symbol from icon and populate your app with it. This way your app instantiates with the same context that the workspace has. Now, from the demo of the Quote Assist app, we've already seen that you can navigate from your app to a chart, open a new chart app. Similarly, you can open a quote, and it's the same function called jet.navigate. You can open a quote list. Let me add a rig to this list, and my quote list is populated with the list of symbols that I specified. You can open a news app, and so on and so forth. This way you can navigate to just about any native Icon app or App Studio app. Here, for example, is the Twitter sentiment app, or this is a calculator for mortgage-backed securities dollar roll. You can also navigate to an external website, and in this case I'm using Google. And what that means is that from your app you can navigate the user to pretty much any web application, be it internal or external. Now, we've already seen what context sharing is and how it's done. And there is a bunch of other features here which unfortunately we don't have time to go through. The other important aspect of Jet Library is the data retrieval capability. On top of streaming or snapshot market data retrieval, which we've already seen, Jet Library is capable of retrieving time series of price history. In this case, I'm retrieving time series for IBM stock, and I'm getting 20 latest 1-minute bars, open, high, low, close. And this is where my data comes in. The symbology service allows you to do symbology translation. For example, given a rig, you can retrieve QSIP, CDLs, icing, Thomson Reuters Perm ID. There you go. And vice versa, if you have, say, an icing, you can retrieve the primary rig for that issue. The data grid service allows to retrieve a mixture of fundamental and reference data and current market data. Now, in this example, instead of retrieving close price and volume for a bunch of US stocks, I'm gonna get the revenue from the latest company report and EBITDA from 5 years ago. And instead of yesterday's low price, I'm gonna get the current bid price for these stocks. And here comes my data. So these are the main capabilities of the Jet library. We also provide a library of UI elements. If you wish to make your app look exactly like native Eikon apps, you can use our GUI. Here is the typography, status bar, scroll bars, basic GUI elements such as a button, toggle button, things like a checkbox, radio buttons, slightly more advanced GUI elements such as tabs, menu, stream menu, contextual menu, and so on and so forth. But we don't insist on using our GUI. We fully appreciate that you may have your own standards and preferences. And as you recall, the Quote Assist app I showed today uses Angular UI. The last thing I'm going to show today is the app administration and user access control. Users may discover your app through Eikon App Library. Here's where you can find all the apps available to you through Eikon. And there is a category here for App Studio apps, where users can discover your app and request the subscriptions or free trial if it's relevant, if you're offering free trials. As the app owner, you can control the visibility of your app using App Studio Administration Console. Allowed subscribers is the list of users who can discover that your app exists in the app library. You can make your app visible to individual users, groups of users, sites, and organizations. Anyone who is not on the list can never see your app in the app library. The subscribers screen is where you manage the subscriptions to your app. You can see who requests subscriptions, you can approve or deny subscription requests, you can cancel subscriptions. If you wish, you can also automatically grant subscriptions to anyone who requests it. In order to request a subscription, user must be able to see the app in the app library, so only people from allowed subscribers list can request subscriptions. Controlling the app visibility through app library will not prevent a user who happened to know the URL for your app from entering it into the command line and accessing your app this way. If you need tight user access control, you can implement it the old-fashioned way by requiring a user to enter sign-on credentials into your app. Or, if you want to make it more user-friendly while still maintaining tight control over user access, you may take advantage of Federated Authorization Service based on SAML2, which Thomson Reuters provides. Since we authenticate all Eikon users, our authorization service can tell you who's trying to access your app through Eikon and what level of access this user has in the Eikon app library. In other words, our authorization service can tell you if the user subscribes to your app, has an open trial, or if the user is not authorized to view your app. The authorization service is fully compliant with SAML2 and works with popular open source identity solution providers such as Shibboleth or Apache Modath Melon. This is it. Thank you very much for your attention. Let's open the line for questions.